the 130th webinar brought to you by the South African Jewish Report since lockdown began, but we're really jumping in on a very meaty topic.
Absolutely. I mean, this is literally breaking news. So the Jewish Report is aiming to be the thought leader and in fact the front of all news that is breaking. And when we heard from Nida that the laws were changing and that there was stuff already sitting there waiting to be signed off in Lithuania, we thought this would be the perfect opportunity to have our first webinar for the year, and that is what we're having tonight. Literally signed new bill in Parliament last Thursday.
So it's a breaking news webinar, and on controls tonight, we have Britt and Danny. Britt and Danny, turn on your cameras. Let's wave to you. Thank you so much. We're broadcasting tonight on YouTube, on Zoom, and on Facebook. And you're going to be bringing all of the questions this evening onto this platform so we can answer as many questions as possible. So to Britt and Danny, a huge thank you for all of your effort and all of your time. None of this is easy. You're giving up your nights and weekends to be here, and we really appreciate it. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, Howard.
And Dina, have you seen the latest edition of the South African Jewish Report?
I have. I know that there's a cover wrap, which is an absolute accolade to the wonderful achievements that we've had from our wonderful matrics. I mean, I think the results were insane this year, but I know we're not showing the wrap, we're showing the legal amendments, which is the breaking story that we're talking about this evening. But as usual, from this edition and for the rest of the year, we'll continue to bring you unbelievable content from our editor, Peter Cross-Monda, who we adore and worship every single day because she's so brilliant. And yeah, there's great content. So I think everyone should rush out and go and get it. And you're going to tell them where they can get it.
I'll tell them, but I want to tell you about some of the stories in this week's edition, because not only is the story about the legal amendments that we're going to be talking about today, making it easier for South Africans to get their European Union passport through reclaiming their Lithuanian citizenship. We're also going to be talking about the new Israeli ambassador in the edition. There you can see a picture of him giving his credentials to South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, and we've not got a new Heksha on the block, our third Heksha, kosher Heksha. There's so much to read about, the stories of the Tulsis. Don't forget Howard Feldman's remarkable column, Karen Milner from the South African Jewish Board of Deputies, fantastic column. Go out, get your copy of the South African Jewish Report newspaper. You can get it at Pick and Pay and Discam and Clicks, and let's see where else. Pick and Pay, we've done Spar, Checkers, your local shul, your local school. We're all over the place in about 242 locations around the country. So go pick up your edition on hard copy, or if you're unable to get a hard copy edition, don't forget you can go online and either download the entire edition at www.sajr.co.za, or alternatively, you can read the individual stories there as well. So don't forget, all of this, including this 130th edition of lockdown webinars brought to you by the South African Jewish Report. And Dina, today is a very important and special day because, in fact, today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, it is sort of bittersweet because if people, unfortunately, and their families hadn't had to go through that, then had to flee their countries, then we wouldn't be looking to see where we came from to see that, because we wouldn't be here. So thank God our ancestors all escaped the Holocaust and came from Eastern Europe and came from everywhere else they did to actually save their lives and start afresh with nothing.
But in truth, the Holocaust in Lithuania was in fact the most thorough Holocaust anywhere in the world. In 1939, there were somewhere between 200,000 and 208,000 Jews in Lithuania. And by the end of the war, 195,000 of them were dead. So today we mark and commemorate those of our friends, our families, our colleagues, all who perished in the Holocaust, but especially those who are very close to our community in South Africa, who perished during the Holocaust in Lithuania, often not in death camps, often killed by the next door neighbors whom they had lived next to for hundreds of years. We cannot forget them as we go into tonight's discussion. But also a reminder that tonight We're going to be answering all of your questions, and we want you to participate. So if you're watching us on Zoom, please remember there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. I see we've already got a few questions relating to citizenship already coming in. Don't forget to chat to us as well on the chat section of Zoom. And if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, we're monitoring the chat sections there as well. And we'll bring all of your questions across. Danny and Brett will be doing that, bringing all of your questions across onto this platform so we can answer as many of your questions as possible. And with that, if I can ask our guests to please turn on their cameras, and a big welcome back to an array of experts that we have. Joining us from Australia, we have Nida. Joining us,
hi everyone.
From Lithuania, we have Danius. And
Yes.
joining us from Israel, we have Avi. Great, guys, welcome back. And Nida, maybe we start off with you. There have been some very dramatic changes that we've seen in the last week that change a lot of the details relating to how South Africans are applying for reinstatement of their Lithuanian citizenship and applying for passports. Maybe you can run us through what changes have we seen in the last week?
Thank you very much, Howard. Thank you for being the first to start this very important discussion and important webinar. But allow me to reflect a minute on the Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is very much important, not only for all of the Jews, but I can assure you that it's very important also for Lithuanians. And I think this is very symbolic that those changes are happening, those changes, this change in law is happening exactly in time when we commemorate, when we remember, and we definitely will always remember what happened during the World War II. Unfortunately, some of our people participated in atrocities, but I think new generation, and especially generation of the current political establishment, better than anyone understands the Jews, the Jewish matters, and this particular law is a good example of it. When 110 parliament members are raising their hands and voting for the change, the positive change of the citizenship law, which removes a lot of unnecessary tension and a lot of unnecessary obstacles created in the meantime while this law was functioning since already more than 10 years. So I'm very happy that South Africans celebrate that change in law that in that way as we are doing tonight. Tonight in your country, very early morning in Australia, where I'm currently sit in Melbourne. But speaking about the change of law, I think it was just necessary to do because the things we're getting into very weird direction, because on one hand, the law on citizenship did not change particularly during a couple of years. But since there were a couple of instances when some of the cases were rejected and people decided to challenge this matter in the courts, as a result of those court cases, few very important precedents, the legal precedents were created, and those precedents became a part of the legislation. Now, speaking about the institutions of Lithuania, in particular Migration Department, which is the institution, taking decisions or preparing for the decision to be taken by the Minister of the Interior, to be very precise. The mindset and the attitude was, how should I put it diplomatically, was not very welcoming to people, descendants of former Lithuanian citizens. And here we are speaking not only about South Africans, not only about Jews, but also about people of various nationalities and living in various parts of the world. So when things were heading into very, so to say, uncomfortable situation where barely anyone could go through, barely anyone could, fit the requirements set by Migration Department, and of course, all other matters which were part of legislation. I thought the only way to change this pattern is just to change the law. So, of course, it's it's a big project to take part in legislation when you are not member of the parliament. But as I said in the beginning, current political establishment, current political government is very much pro, very much understanding, very much pro diaspora living in Lithuania. And I think the fact that politicians, parliament members, people from the president office, they see you as part of our community. I think this was very, very helpful. So it took nearly a year of a lot of work. We joined forces with other colleagues working in that particular area. And Dainius, who is present, also was very instrumental. He joined a little bit later in the process, and also other politicians, other professors of constitutional law, historians. Everyone was on board. Everyone was invited on board, and our biggest task was to prepare. First of all, to convince the parliament members that this particular law has to be not even changed, but additional dimension has to be added on top of the rule who is recognized as the person who held citizenship of Lithuania between 1918 and 1940. I'm not sure how deep should I go into the details and to explain the essence of that law, but I think everyone who had tried to reinstate the citizenship of Lithuania, and most probably who was rejected this chance, know that the most important thing you have to prove when applying is, one, the fact that your ancestor held citizenship of Lithuania after 1918, meaning after the time when Lithuania became a state and citizenship at all was possible, but also that the citizenship has been retained until 1940, June 15. This date is very important in Lithuanian history only because on this date, Lithuanian occupation by Soviet Union happened. So, the statehood, so to say, ceased temporarily to exist. This is why we have those cutoff dates. So, if there were no particular difficulties in recognizing who held citizenship of Lithuania, there are certain rules and they are nicely outlined in the laws. We always had a gray zone in the second cutoff date, who remained citizen of Lithuania until 1940, June 15. And this is where Migration Department came up with various interpretations and limitations and so on and so on. So basically the law which we are speaking about, which was corrected, we do not even call it changing of the law. We say that this is the small correction of the outlining of a person who can apply for reinstatement of Lithuanian citizenship. So under this current edition of the law, under this current change of the law, the person will have to prove that obviously his ancestor held citizenship of Lithuania, and also we will have to inquire in the archives of Lithuania whether there was official procedure completed if a person formally lost the citizenship of Lithuania. I mean, if a state of Lithuania took the citizenship away, because there were cases and there were reasons why a person could have lost the citizenship of Lithuania. But this will have to be proved versus a previous approach or previous attitude of Migration Department. They claimed that person should prove negative. I mean, person should prove the fact that despite immigration to South Africa or to other countries, this ancestor remained a citizen of Lithuania. So I know it's a little bit might sound a little bit confusing perhaps for someone who doesn't have the legal education, but I very much hope that during this this conversation, many things will be cleared out and maybe answered the questions which people might be having.
So Dainius, let's turn to you for a moment.
Yes.
Run us through, let us say I've never applied for the reinstatement of my Lithuanian citizenship. Run us through what I have to do. What are the requirements?
So essential is to find out, essential requirement is to find out if any of your ancestors was from Lithuania. So that's the first step. Yes, obviously, somebody was from Lithuania. Then we have to emphasize that we are talking only about direct descendancy. So one of my parents, one of my grandparents, or one of my great-grandparents, just 3 generations. Okay, we are passing this requirement that, let's say, one of grandparents or one of great-grandparents was from Lithuania. The next step is to find out with your family if this ancestor who was from Lithuania, if he or she arrived from Lithuania to South Africa or any other country in the world after the state of Lithuania was established. I would take a little pause on this moment because there is sometimes misunderstanding from the side of the clients why it is so important that the arrival must be after 1918. So just a short explanation that the state of Lithuania was established in 1918. Prior to that, it was for the very short period of time part of Germany during the First World War, but for the whole century, it was part of Russian Empire. So if your ancestor arrived to South Africa prior to the said year, they arrived being Russian subjects or likely then German subjects. So if the arrival would be after 1918, then we can apply presumption that the ancestor arrived being Lithuanian subject, yes? So knowing these facts, already the situation is good enough to get in touch with the professionals to discuss your case individually. Because people, the clients that we are meeting, often they're expressing that they thought that it is more complicated. They thought that they need to collect all documents in advance to start the procedure. No. That's the wrong approach. You have knowing this fact that my ancestor, who is not for the generation line than one of my great-grandparents, that he or she arrived after 1918, that's the essential positive, and that's the point where you should discuss your case individually with the professional who will guide you exactly what other details should be collected, where to find the records, where to find the documents, etc., etc. So that's essential. The second requirement, as Nida mentioned, is that we have to prove that the ancestor remained a citizen of Lithuania until the set date, until the year 1940. And good to know that not only that we are celebrating, me as an attorney, as an advocate in Lithuania, I'm celebrating not only political solution of this mess that we had for the last year and a half, but we are also celebrating the judicial changes, judicial practice changes, which were brought with recent decisions of the Supreme Court of Lithuania, who also admitted that the understanding, that the comprehension of this requirement when the person lost the citizenship and when the person did not lose the citizenship is the same as it is now set clearly in the law or amendment, the law on citizenship amendment. In other words, we're happy to say that it's not only politicians who are setting boundaries and bringing this procedure to the normal direction, but also courts are becoming more and more reasonable in this aspect and more and more reliable, that we can expect better attitudes to this type of procedures. So these are essential requirements, and then the procedural tasks, obviously, how to prove. Yes, so the requirement is clear, but the second question, how to prove that the applicant is passing these requirements.
So Danius, can I stop with a few practical questions, because people are posting, and the one question is, what does it mean to retain your citizenship until 1941? And for example, Rachel Glazer says to us, I was rejected because my grandfather was naturalized in South Africa in 1935. Now, because they were naturalized in South Africa in 1935, does that mean he gave up his Lithuanian citizenship? What does that mean?
Yeah, so briefly, those days Lithuanian regulations said that Lithuanians are not allowed to hold dual citizenship. They are not allowed to take another citizenship. Yeah, but those days regulation, interwar period regulation, did not say that by taking another citizenship that the Lithuanian citizen is losing automatically one's Lithuanian status. So how to understand this moment? It just means that Lithuanian authorities would not recognize this naturalization abroad as the legal moment, exempting citizen of Lithuania from one's obligation towards Lithuania. For example, obligations to pay taxes in Lithuania, those days the obligations to take military service in Lithuania. So this misunderstanding was from the side of Immigration Department for some period, roughly a year and a half, that if somebody took citizenship abroad and broke this rule prohibiting to take another citizenship, that it means that he or she lost Lithuanian citizenship. Yes. The new understanding and the new explanations from the side of the courts of Lithuania and from the side of Lithuanian Parliament by amending this law is that he or she, by taking another citizenship, not necessarily lost Lithuanian citizenship unless this fact is registered officially by those days Lithuanian authorities. That, in other words, that there was a procedure, official procedure, to cancel citizenship for those people who took another citizenship by not getting permission from Lithuanian authorities. So getting back to the question of one of our viewers' webinar, just we have to check. In particular, in individual situation, we have to check whether the grounds for rejecting the application was the fact that Lithuanian archives do have records about the fact that the person lost Lithuanian citizenship, or they rejected application based on the fact that they just knew that the Immigration Department nowadays knew that the person took citizenship abroad prior to 1940, and they rejected application even despite that Lithuanian archives would not have this any records about termination of the citizenship. So these are completely two different situations from the legal point of view, and it has to be evaluated individually. If there are no records in Lithuanian archives that the citizenship was canceled, then we have to look what are the options for this particular client, for this particular applicant, which way to take. To reapply or to go to appeal to the court in Lithuania. So there are several legal options that can be taken. We'll not go into depth with each option, but I just explained that two possible situations why this application could be rejected. So we have to look individually. Yeah.
But what you are saying to us, it's not a closed door. If you took out citizenship in South Africa, it doesn't mean to say that you lost your Lithuanian and therefore can't.
Yes, not automatically. From my investigations, because I've spent hundreds of hours in Lithuanian archives investigating the situation since 2017, when this new rule was introduced in Lithuanian legislation to prove that the ancestor held citizenship until 1940. So since then, we have investigated hundreds of tons of the documents in Lithuanian archives. So our estimates is that only rather little percent of naturalizations that happened abroad, only very little percent of these cases became registered on Lithuanian by Lithuanian authorities those days. So I would be optimistic, but each case has to be reviewed and checked individually, you know. So in order to say clearly for this applicant that yes, the doors are not closed yet. So, but worth to check that.
Sorry.
Dina, can I ask Nita one last question and then I'll hand over to you, because I see that Isabel has said her grandparents were in fact in Lithuania in 1941 and were in fact murdered. Does that mean she can apply for citizenship?
The answer is yes. If they still lived in Lithuania after 1941, so most
chances are they were murdered in 1941 in Lithuania.
Yes, but we have to not forget one additional legal moment as legal principle of citizenship continues. Yes. If we are talking about, like, let's say, great-grandparents who stayed in Lithuania and were perished during the Holocaust, which happened after 1940, logically, we would assume that they kept Lithuanian citizenship until 1940, and that's all good. But if their offsprings, if their children who are our direct ancestors, if they emigrated prior to 1940, and assumingly they took citizenship abroad prior to 1940, let's say one of our grandparents, yes, and this information became registered in Lithuania, so this could be, unfortunately, this could be an obstacle for proving that the applicant is passing all the requirements. But yeah, so one legal hypothetical situation could be not favorable for this applicant or for this client, but most likely that the situation should be positive. Yeah.
Thanks, Dina. Over to you, Anita.
Perfect. So, sorry, Nita, I know that you had your hand up. I just wanted to know if there was anything you wanted to interject in that.
Yes, I just wanted to add specifically, Danish very well explained this legal point, legal part of the story. I just want to put it into very simple words, perhaps, so that people understand it easily. The concept of the citizenship is about certain rules on how you get the citizenship and how your citizenship is taken away. It cannot evaporate. Your citizenship cannot simply evaporate if you, travel from one country to another country. You just cross the border, that's it. But your citizenship remains. Now, before this legal change has been done in the laws, Migration Department would make the decision on the assumption that if a person departed to South Africa and accepted citizenship of South Africa, most probably he lost the citizenship of Lithuania. Now, what this particular law is adding, that not necessarily a person lost citizenship of Lithuania. Citizenship of Lithuania could be lost only after a very precise procedure completed by the government of Lithuania according to the laws of that particular year when the person supposedly lost or not lost citizenship. So, again, to wrap up, citizenship could not appear out of nothing. A person should have been born in Lithuania, his parents have to be born, and so on and so on. The same thing applies to the losing of the citizenship. Losing of the citizenship not necessarily happened, by one-sided decision of a person who accepted the citizenship of South Africa in this case. So, as Dana said, there are so many scenarios in every case. Every single story is so much different. Every family is so much different. So in every single case, we have to drill deep first of all into the story of the person, and then to check archives very, very thoroughly and to see what documents are available on various things which are essential in this particular process.
All right, because the question actually, a few people have just mentioned, they said, what is the actual change in the law that was made?
Exactly. This is such a small, tiny bit, well, additional explanation has been added. Who is considered as a person who was a citizen of Lithuania between two wars, 1918 and 1940? The rule, who can be, Exactly. This is a definition. This is a definition added. Without this definition, Migration Department had freedom to interpret however, whatever was there. If nice is nice, if not nice, maybe less people are recognized as
because it was more
citizens.
open. Yeah, because it was more open,
Exactly.
it gave them more place to actually decline the actual
Yes.
application.
And if you're unhappy, you can go to the courts. Then you have to spend yet another 6 months or 8 months in the courts, and the Migration Department would fight back, and they would create yet another legal precedence. It was crazy. I mean, we were heading into something which was totally out of control and out of sense. In the end, before this, this law was voted, as Dana said, the laws also started to be more favorable to that particular, to explaining of that particular thing. But you know what? It's not easy. You have to understand, we are talking about things which happened nearly 100 years ago, about legal system, about what happened. Not every judge is capable or is willing to drill down to those matters that deeply. You need to get on board the historians, the politicians who knew the establishment, and also to take into consideration the historical developments, and to understand that these people who were leaving from Lithuania, they were leaving not in most cases not from happy life. So again, these are very, very, this is not a simple situation to make certain decisions. But I think this particular change in law, it just put things into where they belong.
Okay, and when does this come into play, the actual new legislation? When does it start?
It's very easy. I mean, now after Parliament voted unanimously, basically, for that particular change, the president has 10 days to sign the bill into the law. I do not see any reasons why the president shouldn't be signing the law. But in case, the president does not sign this into law, of course, then the same project comes back to the Parliament, and Parliament can reject the veto of the president by majority of the votes, but it's very unlikely that this will happen. So basically, in those days, within 10 days, so maximum until 30th of January, it has to be already in life.
Okay. And also there's a lot of questions now. People don't know where to begin. So they're saying they don't have their grandparents' birth certificates. So what do people need to begin? How do they begin the process?
First of all, I very much encourage you to get in touch with someone who has access to, Lithuanian archives. This is our main place where we spend entire working days, because this is where we access very, very important documents. And even if you do not have, birth certificates or passports or anything, look, Lithuanian archives have more than 3 million documents. The documents are very well kept, very well stored. Lithuanian archives are one of the best shapes I have ever seen in my life, and I'm
familiar. But
exactly, you, Dina, yes, you visited and you saw, and we are finding incredible things, and we are sometimes telling people the stories of their families by searching for something we accidentally find the interesting things, which is part of the history of the family. So first of all, get in touch with us. Get in touch with consultants who will, first of all, check your eligibility. Check that there will be eventually no obstacles in the future to succeed, and also will guide you through this process, because this is a legal process. It's not. Sometimes people think that they might do everything themselves, but I can assure you, it's not that simple and that straightforward as you might think that it is. Because you will be dealing with the laws and regulations of the foreign country, of the foreign language, and you have to see the context of this all. It's not only, simple procedure where you apply for the discount card in the grocery stores. No, it's not.
Absolutely.
It's not like
and
that.
And people are also asking, so there's a law on how many generations are able to apply. So how many generations are able to apply? Because someone's saying if they can apply, can their kids apply with them?
Yeah, so 3 generations are part of this law. 3 generations are eligible, which means that let's say, your ancestor, we call it citizen zero. So this is the zero generation. So 3 generations after that citizen have a right to apply. It doesn't mean that all of them have to apply. I mean, the first generation can choose not to apply, or maybe first generation, unfortunately, is no longer with us. But 3 generations have a right to apply. But what happens when citizenship is reinstated, when all or any of those generations are getting citizenship, like for instance, you, Dina, in your case, when your children, I know it's still some time to go, but when your children will be having their children, since they are citizens of Lithuania, their children will be born as citizens of Lithuania.
So I've got
so exactly. So even the child of your youngest child, she was born already as a citizen of Lithuania. Exactly. So as we speak, 3 generations are given a right to reinstate the citizenship, to get back what belongs to them. But then it will carry on forever as far as people will have children.
In perpetuity. And I know there's a question, sorry, Howard, one more, there's a big worry now that children reach age 18, especially the males, that they're getting called up to the army. I think that's a big thing.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much for raising this issue. This question is also on my list. I just, I wanted to initiate it. Please, please, please check your status. If you are a male, it's the law of service in the obligatory service in the army applies only to males in Lithuania from 18 till 23. So if your children, if yourselves are in this age, you have to visit a certain web page. I will put the exact address in the chat, in the comment section. Go there and check your status if you are not drafted to the army. If you are drafted to the army, do not panic at all, because the drafting system is based on lottery, and they are drafting much more people than they actually need. A lot of people are, the army is basically having a lot of volunteers, so they barely ever have to, drag someone against the will to the army service. But if you find yourself on that list, get in touch with us. We will instruct what to do. But basically, in all cases, all people who were drafted so far got the exemptions of the army. So do not panic at all. There are many reasons why you can be exempt, but please check, because this is your obligation to check the status of your army service. And if you are on the list, you have to register and let them know.
Okay, so they won't notify you. You'll have to check.
No, that's your obligation. That's your obligation as a citizen of Lithuania. You have to do it yourself. Every January is the very important month, and please do check the list of draftees. I will put the email address.
Dina, we've had lots of requests of people who want to get hold of both Nida and Danius. So we'll show both. You both have adverts, and we do polls for both of you. But let's just start actually with email addresses before we show those adverts, because a lot of people are watching us on YouTube and Facebook tonight, and they don't have access to the chat and the poll that we're going to do. So Danius, let's start with you. If people want to get in touch with you, let's start with your email address.
Oh, it's very simple. It would be info@injure or injure INJURE.LT. Yeah, so simple.
Give it to us again. Info at injure in Lithuanian or injure in English.lt. INJURE.LT. Or I'm always reachable on WhatsApp, which is also convenient. So +370 600 68454. So WhatsApp is also very straightforward contact. I'm responding immediately. So you're welcome to contact and discuss. So Danius, what we're going to do is we're actually going to put your details onto both YouTube and onto Facebook as well, so people will be able to access it there as well. Nida, give us your details too.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for this opportunity. Ours is very easy to remember because our company is called Next Steps, and we always encourage people just take next steps and do what you have to do. So it's at info@nextsteps.lt. LT is for Lithuania. Sometimes people are making the misspelling the ending of Lithuanian emails because they think that this is IT, Italy, for Italy. No. At the end is LT. Info@nextsteps.lt. I will write it down on the comment section as well.
Okay, we've actually just put it there as well. Nida, we're going to watch your advert first. And for those people who are watching on Zoom who want you to contact them, we're going to have a poll for them as well. Danius, we'll do that for you as well in a few minutes. So, Danny, let's start with Nida's ad, please.
If your ancestor immigrated from Lithuania later than 1918, you may be eligible for a Lithuanian passport. Wait no longer. Take the next step. Schedule a free consultation today. Email info@nextsteps.lt and receive professional guidance through the exciting journey of reinstatement of Lithuanian citizenship. Next Steps Heritage and Beyond, your most reliable partner in all Lithuanian matters.
Okay, and Danny, if you could just pull up a poll for us, if people would like Nida to contact them, please, if you could answer the poll that we're about to put up, and we'll make sure that Nida and her team get back to you, and we're going to do the exact same thing for Danius a little later on. So you'll see, if you're watching on Zoom, a poll says, would you like Nida of Next Steps to contact you? You've got yes, or yes, I'd like to be contacted. And I see we're having a huge response, Nida. I don't know if you're watching at the moment. There are about 70 people so far, 100 people so far. You can see the interest that, in fact, this has within our community, that we're on about 130, 140 people who, and now we probably substantially more than that, of people who are looking to regain their Lithuanian citizenship. So you can understand just how much this impacts on our community. So, Danius, as people are doing that, let's turn to you. A lot of people applied and got stuck in this mess of this automatic presumption that they had lost their Lithuanian citizenship, and they got rejected over the last few years. So what do they in fact do if they've already been rejected, but they think they're eligible?
So the first thing that they should do is to consult the professional lawyers, not intermediaries, not some friends, but professional lawyers who can look through the case, look through the documents, and evaluate what are the options available in this particular case. Because most often people would think that to appeal to the court is the straightforward solution. Yes, in many cases it is a solution. We're having tens of court cases to appeal, court cases to solve other problems in applications before the case is rejected. But I have to emphasize that not always the application to the court the appeal to the court can be immediate. The case must be prepared properly in order not to burn the case. We have to look if all the necessary documents were actually submitted, and if the other ways, not judicial ways, cannot be applied. Because as Nida has mentioned, the court procedures are rather lengthy. We have the court cases which can take several months. But in my practice, I did have several court process which took more than 3 years, and luckily eventually the result was achieved. But as I say, it is patience, and a lot of energy requiring process. But as I said, consult professional lawyers, local Lithuanian lawyers who would evaluate the case properly. So that's the best advice. If talking about our firm, all the consultations are free of charge. So just contact us, show us what the documents you had. Let us go in deep with your case and listen to the advices that we would have in your particular case. So that would be my advice. What have to be done.
So Danius, let's quickly look at your advert. We're going to pull up as well onto the screen a poll that people can contact you. You see there are about 180 people who are watching this evening who are particularly interested in working out how they can regain their Lithuanian citizenship. And Danius, am I correct as we pull up the poll and allow people to request that you contact them? Am I correct that you work on a success fee? So if you're unsuccessful, it costs you nothing.
Exactly. That's the essential. That's the essential that I want to emphasize. That, and especially I want to emphasize that I'm an advocate. I'm a Lithuanian bar member, and I do have reach of all options that are needed in order to cope with the especially complicated cases where the court involvement is needed. Just to understand correctly that despite Lithuanian archives are in very good shape, but still we're talking about archive records that are more than 100 years made more than 100 years back, and a lot of records, despite that they are in good shape, but still a lot of records are missing. And I want to just give a message for people that it's not a dead end, that the birth record cannot be found, that one or other record cannot be found in archives. There are legal approaches, legal procedures how still to cope with these cases. Not in all situations it is possible. We are not magicians, but it's not the game is not finishing with negative answer from archives. So yeah, that's the message.
So Danius, one last question from you. We're then going to talk to Avi and come back and try to answer as many of the questions as possible. You'll see that in the Q&A, we've got about 63 questions already, and we've probably got another 20 or 30 in the chat section too. But one question that people have, they often need information from the South African Department of Home Affairs. And the South African Department of Home Affairs has been closed for much of the last 2 years. What do you do?
Yeah, so just divide the questions that we have for the client. There are different types of documents that are needed from Department of Home Affairs. One part of those documents are essential. Other part of documents can be optional. So in each individual situation, I'm always encouraging clients, talk to us. Tell us which document particularly you are missing, you cannot get from the Department of Home Affairs. Maybe our agents who are in South Africa, in Johannesburg, in Cape Town, maybe they can help you with getting those documents. Because the common understanding is that Department of Home Affairs was not functioning during the whole COVID period. That's the common understanding that we are hearing from the clients. But that's not true. That's not true. We managed to finish successfully hundreds of applications, hundreds, after the COVID situation has started, which means that we managed to receive for these clients with the help of our people in South Africa, we managed to get these documents. So it is still possible, even taking into account that it is slower. Yes, it is slower. It is more energy, more efforts requiring process, but it is not impossible. So that's the advice.
So, Nido, we have an issue with Home Affairs having been closed, maybe not entirely closed. A lot of people who would otherwise have applied to the Department of Home Affairs to retain their South African citizenship with receiving a second citizenship were unable to do so. So what is your advice? Tell us what South African law says. Do I need to inform Home Affairs that I have a new citizenship or I'm applying for a new citizenship? And when do I do that? And what happens if I've been unable to do that over the last 2 years? Because that department has definitely been closed.
Look, Howard, that's a tough question for someone who is an expert on Lithuanian laws, but not in the South African laws. So, of course, my knowledge of South African laws and requirements is very limited, and I just rely on obviously on the opinions on various lawyers, and I know that those opinions differ. Because we are speaking here not about naturalization, not acquiring dual citizenship by naturalization, but by acquiring citizenship through reinstatement, which means that you are not, like becoming a new citizen out of, I don't know, marriage or moving out of the other country. But again, we know for sure very well Lithuanian legal system and Lithuanian legislation. I very much encourage people to to get the advice from South African lawyers about retention of South African citizenship, and to consult with them, because here the people are split into two groups. One of them totally ignore that requirement, and another group is very much following the rules. But as far as I know, these rules are not 100% yet clear.
So Stephanie says, in terms of South African citizenship law, the acquisition does not fall within the automatic loss provisions, so the retention is not necessary by law. I know that's one provision, but it isn't necessarily everyone's view. And Robin Sachs says that you can get your retention letters from Germiston Home Affairs, no problem at all. So you wanted to talk about one other law, and then we're going to move over to Avi and then come back to both Dennis and yourself.
Very quickly, yet another breaking news, yet another breaking announcement, I think, which is also, some people in South Africa will be very, very happy to hear. As you might know, especially those who already reinstated the citizenship of Lithuania, and those people who have 3 letters in their names or surnames, it's W, Q, and Z, and W, Q, and the X. These letters are not the letters which belong to Lithuanian alphabet. And when the passports, the passports of those people would be issued, these letters would be converted into second best Lithuanian letters. So the good news is that I think yesterday, if I'm not, I'm in a different time zone, so I might be wrong in one day. The president finally signed the bill allowing those 3 letters to be written in people's passport, which means that if you already are a citizen of Lithuania and your name was weirdly, changed to some different spelling, which I believe you hate, this law will start to be valid on the 1st of May, and all of you will have a chance to change your passports with a proper spelling. At the moment, you can add a special notification on the second page that the proper spelling is with W or with X or with Q. But this law is already voted in the parliament, and it took our politicians 30 years to make this decision, and it just happened. So my last advice, if you guys are already citizens of Lithuania, please vote in our elections, and vote for the political parties who are caring about you, about your community. And I'm very serious about that. If it's not for one particular member of parliament, Ms. Dalia Asanavičiūtė, this change in law would never, ever be possible. Her resilience and her determination was essential behind that. So all we ask from you and all we encourage you to do, those who have already passports in Lithuania, whenever the next elections are, please come and please vote for proper parties in our establishment, political establishment, because only this is how the changes are made.
So there
That's a
are, in
great
fact, about 3,500 South Africans who have
Exactly.
reclaimed their Lithuanian citizenship and eligible to vote. Dennis, you had your hand up just before Dina speaks to Avi.
Yeah, so just a short remark that.
Oh, your sound's gone a little weird. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's better.
Okay. Yeah. So this change is effective already with some limitations, but actually it is possible to change this W, X, and Q into original spelling already, and the Immigration Department is already passing approvals with the proper spelling. So not necessarily to wait for the May. It is possible to get corrections into originals already. So if anyone is interested, so they might contact and we can discuss individually.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
surprised because I didn't know those letters didn't exist. So when I saw my son's passport, then I knew.
Yeah.
So Nida and Dennis, we're going to turn off your cameras and your sound. We're going to give you about a 15 or 20-minute break. But in that break, I'm afraid we're giving you lots of homework. Please look at the Q&A section and the chat section that you have in front of you and select 5 or 7 questions that you'd like to answer, each of you, when you come back.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, lots and lots of questions. So yes, so now we are moving. So that was all our questions on Lithuania, but we are, as we said, we're going to come back to those and they're going to look at what the themes are throughout the chat, and we'll get back some answers. But now moving to Avi, who is in Israel, but you're going to be talking to us about Polish and Portuguese passports, we believe.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Problem with the internet, the reception. Can you hear me properly?
You just cut out there. I see you've moved back to your old position, which had poor internet connectivity. So can we ask you to go back to where you were when you had good connectivity, please, Avi?
Yeah, give me a second, please. I'll fix it again, okay?
Okay.
No problem.
I was uncomfortable over there. This is why I went back here.
Okay, well, so far it's okay. We'll let you know if we have a problem again.
All right. So, okay, so shall we continue this way, yeah?
Absolutely. So tell us, let's start with one which obviously that's closest. You were going to talk about Portuguese passports, but Polish
Actually,
is
Dina, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with the Polish.
Yes, because there's actually a question in here that says, someone said that they were born in Vilna, but then they came from Belarus. So that actually is very interesting because it depends. Though I know the borders kept moving. So let's address that question and you'll start.
Okay, so we must remember that most Jews that arrived from Eastern Europe to South Africa arrived in the 20s or in the 30s of last century. Now, the borders of the countries as we know them today are very different than they used to be before 1939. So people that arrive from cities like Vilnius or even Lviv in Ukraine, or let's say Grodno or Baranovich, today White Russia, were actually Polish citizens that arrived from Poland and not from Lithuania. So I met people during the time I'm doing that and in different meetings in South Africa telling me, Avi, we applied for Lithuanian citizenship because we are Lithuanian, but then we were rejected. And I tell them, okay, before you tell me you're Lithuanian, let's start by saying you assume or you think you're Lithuanian or of Lithuanian origin, because you might actually be surprised and find out that you are Polish. Because you must remember that until 1794, Polish and Lithuania together was a very big empire. Then they were taken over by the 3 empires of Prussia, nowadays Germany, Russia, and also Hungary. And those countries stopped to exist as independent countries from 1794 until 1918, when First World War ended. Now, in 1918, the borders were very different than today's. So Vilnius, for example, which is today's actually Lithuanian capital, was a city in Poland, not part of Lithuania. So anyone that was born actually in Vilnius or in other cities as well in 1918 or before 1918 and stayed and lived in that area and left before 1939 actually left Poland and was Polish. Therefore, any application that maybe was submitted or will be submitted to Lithuanian authorities will probably be rejected as he was not a Lithuanian or she was not a Lithuanian, they were actually Polish. So this is something which is very important. Anybody that left Vilnius at that time or his ancestry arrived from that area of nowadays Lithuania was not Lithuanian, was Polish. And this is something which is very, very important to remember.
So I think that's a very critical point, because there are a lot of people saying here that their ancestors left what is today Lithuania before 1918. So you're saying that they may have a claim on a Polish passport.
My advice is check in your books, check with your family, with the parents, grandparents, the city, the area, where exactly their ancestors arrived from. Go to Google, put in Google Maps or in Google anytime, Poland 1939, and then goes to images and you will see the map of Poland, which is very different than today's map. And then you will find that Vilnius was actually part of Poland as well as other cities, which today belong to White Russia or to Ukraine. So this is something which I really recommend anyone that might be interested in European citizenship. If it is Polish or Lithuanian and they don't really know, or maybe they assume that they are Lithuanian, check it again.
So how would they go about doing that? Yeah, what are the steps? Like, so what would you help with?
Could you please repeat? I didn't hear you properly.
Sorry, so I'm saying if someone thinks that they came from that region and they want to maybe pursue Polish citizenship, how would they go about it?
Okay, so we have to know the criteria of obtaining or reinstating Polish citizenship. So first of all, what we need is a proof that your ancestor, whether it is your grandfather or your great-grandfather, was a Polish citizen. Now, since, as I mentioned before, Poland was re-established in 1918 when First World War ended. Polish citizenship was actually given to its resident after the approval of Polish Constitution in 1920. So whoever left Poland before 1918 actually left Russia or Prussia or Austria-Hungary. Whoever stayed in Poland after 1918 when it was established, but left before 1920, never became a Polish citizen because the citizenship was given to its residents only after the approval of the Constitution in 1920. So this is something we have to remember. So this is the first thing. If anybody tells me, Abi, we left before 1920, I didn't listen. You definitely are not Polish. Maybe you came from the area that used to be Poland or became Poland. Or if your ancestors stayed a year longer, or 2 or 3 years longer, then you wouldn't be eligible. But if they left before 1920, so they actually never gained or never obtained the Polish citizenship and you are not eligible, So the first step for me is checking the city. Then I go, well, I know most of the cities and the villages and the areas. So usually I won't really need to have a look at the map and tell a person that's contacting me whether he is Polish or Lithuanian, enough for me to know the name of the city.
Avi, give us a few examples. Give us 4 or 5 names of cities that were Polish at that time.
Okay, so what I'll do, obviously, I'm talking about Vilnius, which is in Lithuania, but then I'd like to go to leave Lithuania for a second, and go to White Russia, where we have the cities of Grodno, Lida, Pinsk, Baranovich, 4 cities, and there are other as well, small towns and villages in the area that used to be Poland, and people left in the 20s. Now they say, okay, we are Russian, we are White Russian, Bielorussia, and they used to be Polish, and they are entitled. And then if you go to Lviv or Rovno or Stry, some different areas in Ukraine. So there are plenty of areas. If you just go on the map and you see it, at the moment, I cannot really come up with all the names of different cities, which I mentioned in Lithuania.
Able to tell people, yeah.
So, but there are plenty of samples. I got clients coming to me and telling me, Abi, listen, this is the city. And I said, listen, you are not Lithuanian. Your grandfather was not Lithuanian. He was Polish. Absolutely. Now, it's also important to remember that maybe one was born, for example, in Kovno, in Lithuania. But at the time when it was ruled by Russia, they moved inside the country like you moved today from Joburg to, let's say, to Durban. It was one country, Russian Empire. And they moved from one region, one county to another county. And then they came to Vilnius. And this is where they stayed until they left in 1925. So although they were born in an area that later on became Lithuania, when they left, they probably did not obtain Lithuanian citizenship, but Polish one, because they stayed in Vilnius, which became part of Poland. So the first
not
thing
as
is
simple.
Sorry?
So it's not as simple as people think it is.
Well, actually, it is quite simple, but people have the tendency to open map and say, okay, Vilnius, Lithuania, everybody knows that Vilnius is Lithuania. It has been Lithuania for 80 years. Most of the applicants are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, or let's say 50s or 60s. So for them, it is quite obvious that that Vilnius is Lithuania. I mean, let's go back to Israel, for example. Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, yes, it's Israel, obviously. But how long has it been Israel? It was Jewish land. But let's go to 1925. If someone left Tel Aviv or Jerusalem in 1925, obviously he was not an Israeli citizen, because Israeli citizenship was given to its residents in 1952, not in 48, by the way. So
okay, I think our analogy is confusing the issue. Let us get back to where we actually want to be. So if your ancestors were in an area that was controlled by Poland in 1920, you may be eligible for Polish citizenship as well. What are the other requirements for Polish citizenship?
Okay, so similar to the Lithuanian law, Polish law did not allow Polish citizens to obtain dual citizenship, meaning once a Polish citizen obtained dual citizenship, the authorities there considered him as the violation as a reason to be sanctioned and deprived of the Polish citizenship.
So they renounced their citizenship.
Exactly. Now, but they can only charge, according to Polish law, an adult. So the most important thing to remember, Poland was not occupied by SSR in 1940 or 1939. Poland was Poland and stayed Poland. So the law, the constitution was changed in 1951, actually on January 19th, 1951. Up to this date, dual citizenship was not allowed. But if anyone was a minor by that date, so the Polish cannot hold him responsible for the actions. Meaning, if one was, for example, was born in 1934, so obviously he did not become an adult in 1951, meaning by the time he became an adult, the law already allowed him.
And we just lost Avi.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
So Dina, it's actually a little complicated, but it's made slightly more complicated when we veer off link. So let's just try to work out what we've learned so far. That if you were okay, Avi, sorry, you have to go change locations. You've cut out there.
And how he's going to do a summary of what we've found.
I'm going to try to do a summary. So number one, you needed to be in an area controlled by Poland in 1920. And that area could have been what Poland is today, but you need to really look at what a map of Poland looked like in 1920. That's number one. Number two, you should not have taken up foreign citizenship before 1951. If you did, and you were a minor, that cannot be held against you. Those are the 2 points that we've gotten to at this point in time for people who may still be. Okay. So Avi, the summary so far is you have to have been in an area after 1920 controlled by Poland. You should not have taken out residence or a citizenship of another country before 1951. Okay, listen, Avi. You should not have taken up a citizenship of another country before 1951. And if you did, if you were under 18, that cannot be held against you.
Not exactly. Because if you're under 18, your civil rights are dependent on your parents. And obviously your parents were adults. Therefore, if their citizenship is deprived, then yours is all as well deprived. But women lost the citizenship, but men, Polish men or Polish citizen did not lose the citizenship due to another law saying any Polish citizenship that is owed to serve in Polish army, in the reserves, wouldn't lose his Polish citizenship although obtaining dual citizenship. Therefore, any man that was actually, and all of them to the age of 50, it doesn't matter if they're in South Africa or in Israel or any other place in the world, till the age of 50, you had to serve in Polish army, and therefore, as long as you had to serve in Polish army, you wouldn't lose your Polish citizenship, even though obtaining dual citizenship. All right?
Okay.
You've got to prove that we're in the army.
And the only thing is that joining another army means that you quit the Polish army, and therefore you won't be protected by having to serve the Polish army. So the second thing we have to check is we need a letter, for example, if we're talking about South Africa, obviously, so from the South African army, we need a letter that a certain person did not serve. Now, most of Jews did not serve in South African army. Therefore, it's not a problem. I didn't get even one client of mine that had any problems of obtaining Polish citizenship because his father joined the South African army.
Okay, so Avi, please just also clarify this point for us that you were talking about. If you were a minor in 1951 and your parents took out foreign citizenship, how does that affect you?
So if your father lost the Polish citizenship, then you also lost it.
Okay, but chances are he didn't lose it. But if your mother did,
let's say, for example, that your father, let's say, passed away in the Holocaust, for example, during the war, and then you were born in 1936. You arrived to South Africa in 1947. You obtained dual citizenship, South African citizenship. Then you were a minor, and you are not responsible for your actions. Therefore, since your father passed away as a Polish citizen, died in the Holocaust, and you did not commit any felony because you obtained the dual citizenship when you were a minor, and by the time you became an adult, in the age of 18, it was after 1951, and then it was already legal to obtain dual citizenship, then you wouldn't lose your Polish citizenship, although you obtained dual citizenship.
Okay.
So that's clear enough.
okay, no, okay, it's quite complicated. So let's go on to Portugal now, so people can get a sense of what it takes to reclaim Portuguese citizenship.
Okay. So I think what we can take out from this with Avi, just quickly, just to do another little quick summary, is that if you are not eligible for Lithuanian because you were actually in an area that was at that time controlled by Poland, then there is potentially an opportunity that you can get your Polish passport. Best rather to contact Avi, find out if that area was in the Polish area at the time, see if there's eligibility, what documents are required, and then go through the process. Correct.
Well, this is accurate. This is accurate.
Okay.
What we need is obviously to prove, like in the Lithuanian law, we have to prove that one was a Polish citizen, and then the way is open for us.
Okay,
Perfect.
Let's talk about Portugal, and then we're going to give everyone your details, because I think they'd want to contact you because this is relatively complicated.
All right. So Portuguese law. After the explosion, the Spanish explosion in 1492, most Jews actually landed in Portugal. Portugal was in very good relation with Spain, family wedding, etc. And a couple of years later, they also exiled the Jews from Portugal. A couple of years ago, the Portuguese government decided to, I always say like that, to make up to Jews that were exiled. Then they said, listen, the Jews were exiled, already passed away. We cannot do anything to recompensate them, but we can recompensate their descendants. Therefore, actually, their ancestry were not supposed to lose the Portuguese citizenship, and the children would have been Portuguese citizens. So we are very kind to give back, to reinstate, let's say, the citizenship to descendants of Jews exiled from Portugal. So one has to meet, three criteria. The first thing, you have to be a descendant of Jews. You have to prove that you are Jewish. And the way to do it is by having a ketubah or a letter from Beit Din or anything, any document, official document confirming that you are Jewish. The second thing, you have to be recognized by the Jewish community in Portugal, confirming that you are indeed a descendant of Jews exiled from Portugal. Now, I can tell you that all Jews that arrived to Turkey, to Greece, to Bulgaria, even to Italy, obviously to Yugoslavia, to North Africa, to Zimbabwe as well, to Iraq, to Syria, to many countries spread it all over the world, are being recognized by the Jewish community as descendants of Jews exiled from Portugal. The way they do it, they check your last name and they have the list, like a family tree, and they know how. Usually,
how many Jews? Sorry, Avi. How many Jews were exiled from Portugal, well, Spain, obviously, and then Portugal?
To be frank, I don't know the number. I mean, honestly, I don't know the number. We're talking,
but today there are many millions of Jews who trace their ancestry through Spain, Portugal, North Africa.
At the moment, I can tell you, for example, in Israel, well, we're 9 million here, 9.3 million, so about 7 million Jews. So I can tell you that more than 4 million are eligible for Portuguese citizenship, because it's enough to have one side of the family, even 5 generations backwards. So it doesn't really matter if only one of your great-great-grandfathers was a Jew exiled from Portugal or a descendant of Jewish that were exiled from Portuguese, and the rest of the family can be Ashkenazi. It's enough that one drop of blood was.
So how do they check that? So how do they check that?
Well, I tell you one thing: the Jewish community has their own ways of checking it.
I think that's my genetic heritage. Do you think I'm eligible?
Now, looking at you look Ashkenazi, so I don't know.
I don't know. I'm 4% genetically Sephardi North African.
Okay, can you build a family tree telling me where did your family arrive from?
I can't. They came from Lithuania.
Okay, so they came from Lithuania.
So Avi, what you're saying is that if someone thinks that they've got heritage from Spain, that they can contact you, and you've got obviously your connections and your ways that you can contact the Portuguese community.
So Dina, just before we get off the topic, Avi said there were 3 requirements. Number 1, you have to prove you were Jewish. Number 2, that the Portuguese Jewish community needs to accept you, and there's a list of last names of Sephardi surnames that many Sephardi people are on. Or if you can prove you've got up to 5. Sorry?
I can tell you about myself. My last name is Choresh. My parents arrived from Iraq. And according to the list that are in the Jewish community list, according to the last name, list of last names, my last name appears in it. And therefore, I am eligible, and I did obtain Portuguese citizenship. So I do hold the Portuguese passport as well. I got quite many customers in South Africa that have already obtained the Portuguese citizenship. So
Avi, what's the 3rd requirement?
That you were not convicted in a felony, which according to Portuguese law, that you were not convicted in a felony, that according to Portuguese law, the sanction is 3 years in jail.
So it was a lesser crime, you're okay.
It's okay. No one goes to jail. No one goes to jail in South Africa. It's okay. You're fine.
According to Portuguese law. So unless you murdered someone or raped someone, or I don't know what did you do, kidnapped.
Stole $1 billion. It's fine.
I didn't have even one rejection because of police clearance. It's not a problem.
So those are the three requirements.
Exactly.
Avi, there's so many people who I'm sure want to contact you. Let's have a look at, I believe you've got a few slides. Let's have a look at those slides, and let's also get people to mark on a poll if they're interested in obtaining their Polish citizenship or reclaiming their Portuguese citizenship because they're a member of the Sephardi community, or they have up to 5 generations back one Sephardi member of the family. Then you're the person that they want to speak to. So Danny, show us what we need to see about Avi.
Stage left.
Okay, Danny, let's run Avi's poll as the, okay, there we are. Cool. We're going to put Avi's details on YouTube and on Facebook as well as in the chat section, but also let's pull up a poll for those people who are busy watching us on Zoom. If you'd like Avi to contact you to talk about either your Portuguese citizenship or alternatively your Polish citizenship. And Dina, don't you have a Polish member of your family?
So I actually do. I've got so my late grandfather on my father's side was from Belarus, from a place called Lechowicz, a little town, and the entire Kaplan side of my family are actually Polish. So I actually could have gone either way.
Lechowicz used to be part of Poland. Definitely, yes.
But
so Avi, as people are filling out this form, give us a few more towns and names, because it will resonate with people, that they'll know that, oh, I have an ancestor from there. I'm probably eligible for something that's Polish.
It's hard. To be frank, it's hard. I mean, I'm not very good with names. I'm very good with numbers. I remember numbers. If you give me a phone number, I remember it. I will never forget it even if I want to. But I'm very bad with names. Once somebody mentions a name to me, I can tell him yes or no, or where does it belong to. But it's very hard for me. Actually, what's your name? Says Howard, sorry. So actually, I don't really remember names unless I see it. So I can tell you, obviously, I mentioned before. But the easiest way, if someone just tell me the name of the town from which his ancestor arrived, it will take me a few seconds to tell him Polish or Lithuanian, or maybe even Russian, I don't know.
So anywhere in that region. So someone also just asked earlier about Latvia, and I know Howard asked the question. So the issue with Latvia is that you are not allowed to hold dual citizenship. So if you try and actually regain your Latvian citizenship based on ancestry, you would have to give up your South African citizenship.
I'll tell you, I started doing Latvian as well. Well, I also do Lithuanian, by the way, but we decided I do not speak about that today. But obviously, if anybody is interested, so more than invited to contact me. Anyway, I started doing Latvian as well, but the Latvian law is very, very strict. And like Nida mentioned before about the interpreters of law by Immigration Department in Lithuania. So the same thing, very similar thing is being done in Latvia. And for them, once someone left Latvia and never arrived back, or did not arrive back within 5 years, meaning that he decided to resign Latvian citizenship. So you didn't even have to obtain dual citizenship. It's enough that you left in the 20s and you were not back in Latvia for them to decide that you actually renounced your Latvian citizenship. So I found out that the number of eligible people to Latvian citizenship is so low, is minor, that I decided to stop doing it. I don't do it anymore.
So Avi, what we're going to ask you to do in the chat section over here, people are busy putting in names of places as well as in the Q&A. Will you have a look at some of them, and we'll come back to you in a few minutes' time and ask if any of that resonates with you as potential options for Poland?
Can I send you a picture of the map that I want people to look at, or a link to Google?
Of course, send it to me or put it on our screen. Have you got it on your computer?
Yeah, I got it.
You can
Can
share
you,
it.
can you share your screen?
Right now, okay?
Okay, perfect. And while we do that, let's ask Danius and Nida to join us again, and let's talk about some of those questions that have come through. Danius, do you want to take the first one or two, and then we'll go on to Nida?
Okay, no problems. Yeah, so many questions. So first of all, I would like to thank you for all the people who are interested in these procedures. Obviously, too little time to react to each question, but we will make sure that all the inquiries will be answered by tomorrow, the latest. But just several questions I decided to comment briefly. One interesting question is when attendee is asking if my ancestor was born in Lithuania after 1940. Whether then we could be eligible, because all the discussion was running around this period 1918 to 1940, and the question is if the birth of ancestor was after that. So the comment would be short. Then we have to look into next generation. If we are talking about your one of grandparents who was born after 1940 in Lithuania and subsequently emigrated from Lithuania, so we have to look who was living in that family. If parents of this ancestor who was born after 1940, if these parents were still living or were already living in Lithuania before 1940. Because historically, there were many people who came to Lithuania from Russia, from other countries after the world was ended, Second World War was ended. So that's each case must be looked individually. So that would be the comment. The second question, which is repeating, and so I decided to make it loud. What happens if I was applying through my one of great grandparents, and I have children who were born before I applied, before my Lithuanian citizenship was granted. So these children who were born before my citizenship was granted, so these children, unfortunately, they are becoming already too far generation line. And that's the difference. If the child was born just next day or later after my Lithuanian citizenship was granted, so even if the child is already fifth generation, sixth generation, it doesn't matter. They are becoming automatically citizens. But if the child who is already fourth or fifth generation and born before my application was granted, unfortunately, the child is not eligible. Also, short comment about spouses, because quite often receiving the same question, whether I was granted Lithuanian ancestral citizenship, will my spouse be eligible to become Lithuanian citizen? Unfortunately, not directly, not through descendancy, unless the spouse has own Lithuanian roots. The only way, if not, the only way is to become only through naturalization, but it's complicated, long-lasting process, so it's probably not something very much interesting. Also, very common question.
We'll come back to you. Let's get Nida to answer a few questions. Nida, do you want to select a few to talk about?
Yes. Also, I have several questions. I picked up several questions which are repeating, so I think these make sense to be answered. I think for people still it is very much unclear, what does it mean 3 generations? Because many people think that they can choose among 3 generations which one to choose as their citizen zero. You do not have a choice in this issue. You do not have a choice. Your citizen zero is your ancestor who is born in Lithuania, but his offspring already are born abroad. So I will give a short example to explain, which is very confusing for the people, because if your great-grandparent was a citizen of Lithuania, but your grandparent, offspring of that former citizen, left Lithuania before 1918, you are not eligible to apply, because you cannot claim your citizenship on your great-grandparent, who most probably remained in Lithuania or maybe even arrived later to South Africa. Why you cannot claim your citizenship? Because his offspring was still born in Lithuania and he departed earlier than 1918. So again, the bottom line, you cannot choose among 3 generations, the one which is most convenient for you. There is a certain certain rule which you have to apply here. Only 3 generations are within the game, so to say, but you are not making a choice here.
1918.
Yeah.
As a critical
Exactly, and 1918 is very much essential cutoff line. And again, also many questions are about the same. If my ancestor emigrated before 1918, so once again, no, you cannot apply. And the reason is very simple. Lithuania did not exist at earlier than 1918. It was no state of Lithuania, so a person couldn't be citizen of Lithuania. Here, you are reinstating the citizenship. You are claiming back citizenship. So if your ancestor departed from Lithuania, emigrated from current territory of Lithuania, I shouldn't even say Lithuania because it was not Lithuania, it was Russia at that time. It was the territory was the same, the names of the cities was the same, but formally it was not a state. So if it was not a state, no one could be a citizen of an existent state. So if someone departed early in 20th century, earlier than 1918, no, you are not eligible to apply, and there is no way around it. So that's the rule number 1. Yeah, and many questions about conscription. I know that this is not exactly the topic, but I see that it's just the timing, proper timing to check. So the conscription list, the conscription webpage address has been posted. I hope that all of you found that list where you can check. Only one more remark. In order to check your conscription status, you have to have your Lithuanian ID. What happens if you have not yet received your passport and you do not know your Lithuanian ID? Because if you are born in Lithuania, your ID is known by birth because you are given you are assigned to your ID code when you are born. But when you are reinstating your citizenship, which means, you are getting your first document, and if you still do not have your first document, you will not be able to check your status because you have to know the last digits of your ID. What my recommendation is, just email to this general email address, email that this and this, my name and surname, I was born in South Africa, my name is this, please, I'm not able to check myself in the conscription list, please double check it for me because I do not have my ID code. Do not miss that opportunity because you will, you might be fined, you might be even, stopped somewhere traveling and accused by avoiding the military service if you are on the list and you are not getting in touch with the army. So it's very, very serious. And one very short question.
Nita,
again,
just walk us through. If I'm between the age of 18 and 23 and I'm on the list, but I live in South Africa, I'm studying here, what do I actually do in order to forego my military service?
First of all, you have to supply with your contact details, your telephone number, your address, your email address, so that military has your contact details. If you are a student, this is the easiest way because students automatically are allowed to, to be released from to be taken out of the list. But it's very important also issue. You are taken out of the list for this year only. So if you study this year, for instance, 22, so your conscription is terminated until the end of this year. And next January, you can appear on the list again. And one more very important thing again, if your conscription has been terminated because of various reasons, for instance, studies, your age to become a conscript is expanded until you get 26. So again, get in touch with us. We will definitely assist you with check your conscription status. If you are on the list, get in touch. We will explain to you the next steps.
So basically, if
but most importantly, check it.
Yeah. So if you're between 18 and 26, you need to check every January that you're not on the list.
If you are between 18 and 23, you have to check. But if you have been on the list and if your conscription has been canceled for 1 year, then you have to check yourself until you get to 26, because they are not excluding you from the list. They are just, delaying your conscription. They are adding a couple of years so that you could eventually, go to the army. So again, no one will be dragged, I promise you, to Lithuanian army, because there are plenty of reasons why you can be released from that army. But you have to claim that, you have to register yourself that, yes, this is me, I know that I'm a conscript, and then to supply relevant documents. We will definitely help you with that. And one very, very short question, which is also, actual for people, is there any time limit to apply for a passport for those who acquired citizenship of Lithuania? I mean, the citizenship was reinstated, but for various reasons, they couldn't get the appointment, or because of COVID, they couldn't reach out to the embassy and they couldn't apply for a Lithuanian passport. So don't worry, your citizenship, nothing will happen to your citizenship. Passport is only the personal document, and take as much time as you need, because you will always be eligible to go and to get your passport. Your citizenship will not expire.
Okay, Nida and Daniel, you'll answer one more question each, but in the interim, Avi, I'm going to pull up that map that you sent through to me, and maybe you can talk us through. Avi, you could turn on your camera, please.
Oh, and it's in Polish. I think this is a very, very interesting map.
Avi, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay, can you see? I've pulled up the map that you sent through. Talk us through this map.
Okay, so in this map, what you can see is the whole of territory of Poland, both before 1939 and, let's say before shifting the borders and nowadays. So the white part that you can see in the map was part of Poland from 1918 until nowadays. Now, between 1918 and 1939, the gray part was part of Poland and the pink part was part of Germany. After the end of the Second World War, the borders were shifted, and all the gray part that you can see turned into Ukraine or White Russia or Lithuania, and is not anymore part of Poland. But Poland did receive, as a compensation, let's say, the pink territories that used to be part of Germany and became now part of Poland until nowadays. So nowadays, if you look at the map of Poland, what you will find is the pink and the white one. And this is Poland nowadays, but not the gray.
Okay, so walk us through what's in the gray. When you say Wilno, is that Vilna or is that different?
No, Vilna is Vilnius. Because
okay, and what is Wilno today?
So what is?
On the top right, Wilno. In the gray.
I'm sorry.
So in the top right, on the gray section, he wants, Howard's asking, what is that city? What is Wilno today?
This is Vilnius.
So that's what, yeah. So
okay, so it was Vilnius. Yes. And if your family came from Brest, you too could be able
Brest
to.
Nowadays is White Russia.
But you could be eligible if your family were there after 1920.
Exactly.
Okay,
I also sent you the name of the city of Druskininkai, which nowadays is Lithuania. And many Jews used to live in that city, and they think they're Lithuanian because they open the map and they check it and they see Lithuania. Their ancestor left. It was.
No, Avi, I'm afraid you keep on freezing there. Avi, try that last sentence again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, try that last sentence again.
Okay, so if you, for example, the city of Druskininkai, which nowadays is part of Lithuania. So many people, that city used to have many Jews residents, and that used to be part of Poland. Now people open the map today, they say, okay, this is Lithuania. So companies, for example, let's say Danius or Nida, and they say, find anything in the archives, and their ancestors were actually Polish.
Okay, very interesting. Avi, is there any other question that you've looked at that you'd like to answer quickly before we go back to Nida and Daniel?
I'm losing. I don't know. Something is wrong today with the internet. I don't know what is going on. It keeps freezing.
Okay, we were saying, is there any question you want to answer before we go back to Nida and Daniel?
Well, obviously, I will be more than happy to reply and answer any question that anyone asks me, and I will do it by the chat or by email. I believe you showed, and you're still showing my email address and my WhatsApp number.
All right. In another 2 minutes, when we end this, we're going to end at 1:45 in 6 minutes time. We're going to put everyone's emails and contact details on YouTube, on Facebook, and in Zoom, so people will be able to contact you all. So Nida, let's get a last question from you that you want to answer.
Well, as everyone says, there are a lot of personal questions, and it's very uneasy to shortly answer the question without seeing the full picture. So I encourage everyone who are serious about finding out about their roots and eventually to reinstate the citizenship to email us, or if you choose others, and to get this guidance, professional guidance. One question which I picked up, because it also is repeating. People sometimes, have this misconception that if one person from the family reinstated the citizenship, and so the rest should go automatically. I mean, if for instance I got my citizenship now, I want to apply for my children, so most probably they will be getting automatically, or my brothers or whatever. No, there's no automatic processes in citizenship reinstatement. Even if your citizenship has been reinstated, I don't know, earlier, we still have to check your eligibility under the light of today's law, because as you saw and as we just explained, all of us throughout this webinar, changes happen not only when laws are changed or amended, but also when various court cases are taking place, and the precedents are becoming part of the legislation. So every single case is individual case, and even though you have your citizenship already reinstated, it doesn't make anyone else from your family automatic, when it comes to reinstatement.
Okay, thanks. Daniel?
Yeah, just the same. I would like to repeat and agree with Nida that most of the questions are very, very specific and personal, and without having access to the particular case, it is impossible to provide professional legal opinion and professional legal insights what can be done. And often people getting surprised how many options, legal options there are available, even in situations where archives come with 0 results, or the dates or names are mismatching completely. In practice, so much surprising situations can be found and solved in legal ways. So that I would like to encourage people just contact and discuss individually, because in comment section it's too complicated to provide professional insights. So that would be my advice.
So Danny and Britt, please, can we ask you to put Nida and Danny and Avi's details into the chat section here on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. And we've also got lists of over 100 for each of you people who are interested in reclaiming Lithuanian citizenship. I think there were 30-something who were interested in Poland and Portuguese citizenship as well. We'll provide that to all of you. All we ask you to do is to make contact. We know this is a time-consuming effort, and every person's story is an individual story, and you have to look at each person's story on its merits. But we're just so grateful that you've all come onto the show this evening, and you've been able to provide our community with a degree of hope for those people who haven't yet obtained their Lithuanian citizenship. Dina, you indicated you're Lithuanian. Is Isabella your daughter? I went with you to Pretoria last week to collect Isabella's passport. She's Lithuanian. I'm Lithuanian, and there's no reason why all of you shouldn't in fact have a European Union passport as well. So to all of you who've joined us this evening, a huge thank you. Please make sure that you follow and contact the people required. Danny, I don't know, and Britt, I don't know if you've posted the details yet. I think the details are coming up now in the chat section. Please copy it out, put it into an email or put it into Word, and contact the relevant people and start the ball rolling. You've got a unique opportunity now, and the Lithuanian Parliament has opened the door door to you once again for many people who've had that door closed on them before. So don't wait, because you never know when things are going to change again. Take advantage of this moment, this opportunity, and help yourselves, help your children, help your generations to come, and give them greater opportunity and create a link between them and the country of their ancestors. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We're going to leave the chat open for a few moments. If anyone wants to answer any of the Q&A or put anything in the chat, please join us. In doing that. Or alternatively, we'll see you on our next webinar. Dina, thank you very much. Britt and Danny, thank you for all the help behind the scenes this evening. Have a good night, everyone. And Nida, thank you so much for waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and joining us from Australia.
My pleasure. I will have a long day, and it's Shabbat already. We are heading to Shabbat already, so we will be having Shabbat drinks tonight with some descendants of South Africans who live currently in Melbourne. So I very much look forward to that moment. And well, Shabbat Shalom to everyone tomorrow.
Thank you.
Shabbat
Give them all
Shalom,
our love. Cheers, everyone. Good night.
Bye.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Shalom.